and some of
just on the, just from your talk about facing the threats, facing the challenges that are in front of Muslims today, it's clear, obviously, in the long term, that we cannot solve the issues without in the absence of an Islamic state. But the way I understood your comments is that we have to make a choice between either working for the Khilafah or working on ourselves. The way I look at it is, so when we come back to our Islam, and obviously that's the first and fundamental point, but isn't it about responding to all the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and some of them will find they're within our individual capacity, so we can return to the prayer, but there are others which are a collective effort and may not necessarily apply tomorrow. But the point is, does it have to be a choice between one or the other? Or is it all about responding to all the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
No, it's the issue of manhaj. That Islam didn't come. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't drop the Quran out of the sky all at one time. He could have. As a matter of fact, he could have sent the malaika down with suhuf, just with pages. He didn't. Over 23-year period of time of suffering, consolidation, sacrifice, killing and being killed, wounding and being wounded, the Quran was revealed, and the life of the Prophet ﷺ was opened up for us. So there is a manhaj, a procedure. Certain things have more priority than others. I say from my own small perspective that what I see among the Muslims is that the Muslims need to reform themselves and their behavior first. We need to know what Islam is before we say we want to establish it. This is the need for education. Now, what you're doing here in the university is academic education. You're not going to become a doctor until you study medicine. You're not going to study medicine, and so you're not going to become a doctor until you do an internship. You're not going to go to your internship until you study. You go to medical school. You're not going to go to medical school until you do some other preliminary studies. So there's a manhaj on the way. Keep the ideal in your mind and speak about it, but follow the manhaj. This is all I said. And the Aqidah is the most important part of our manhaj. If you don't start off right, you're not going to end upright. One of our scholars who has passed away, Abu al-Ala Maududi, he said in a book called Towards Understanding Islam, you cannot plant a mango seed and wish for an orange tree. It won't happen. And the Prophet ﷺ told us in a very good hadith, Kullu a'malu bin niyat. It's upon the intentions. So inshallah, brother, have the very best intentions. All of us should. And I think I'll try to be comprehensive in terms of our overall goal. But my suggestion was that we follow the manhaj and we begin with ourselves, inshallah.
Just like to mention a little point that you mentioned in the talk that you gave, inshallah, and advice for all the brothers and sisters here. SubhanAllah, Shaykh, when I speak to a few people in different organizations, different cultures and different sects as well, they're quick to comment about others. You know, leaders, corrupt, that's what Islam, you know. And I just quote the verse from that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not change that within a nation until that nation changes that within itself. And then a point that you mentioned, which I think is one of the most important points that you raised in your lecture and in your previous lectures, is about the Fajr prayer, the morning prayer. You know, like subhanAllah, people are willing to criticize and judge, but if you have a look at the bare essentials, I mean, there's no doubt about it, for the 5 pillars of Islam, and especially the prayers are the first thing that we are going to be asked on the Day of Judgment. And how much of us are perfecting our prayers? And it's not a matter of perfecting our prayers, is not a struggle. It should be a desire and a love which we should complete, especially the Fajr prayer. Because out of the 5 prayers, other than Friday, that is the most rewarding prayer. And how much of us are going up to the prayers? And one of the great scholars said, I forgot which one it is, I'm not going to remember which one it is. He goes, it's not a matter of trying to get up for Fajr, that is the struggle. The struggle is trying to get up for Tahajjud prayer. You know, when Allah descends to the last heaven in the way in which He does, you know, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer our dua, you know, if you can maybe...
And I just make just one small comment, just in addition to that. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to us that you will know the hypocrites from my ummah because they have a difficulty making the Fajr and the Isha prayers in Jama'ah. So I don't know about Sydney, Australia, but I'll just give you what I see in the world as a generality. And of course, the prayer in Jama'ah is for the men. But for the women, it's inside their homes. It's better for them. But generally, do you know what the percentage it is for Muslims praying the Fajr prayer? Not here, but in Mecca even. In Mecca, a city which is 100% Muslim, supposed to be anyway. If there's a non-Muslim in Mecca, he snuck in. You know. So in Mecca, maybe only 1 out of 100 people is getting up out of their beds and coming to the masjid to pray Fajr. So what do you think in Sydney, Australia? Maybe 1 in 1,000. Let's say for 400,000 people here in Sydney, Australia, there may be 400 people in all the masjids together for Fajr prayer. So now, I say that all those with strong feelings, strong condemnations, and strong aspirations and ambitions and voices, let's meet at the Fajr prayer and talk about those issues. And if we can't meet at those times, you can't talk. Keep quiet. Because that's what you're struggling with, and that's what all of us are struggling with. And this is not based upon what Khalid feels. It's based upon the indication of the Prophet ﷺ. We have to build this love for the Fajr prayer and the Isha prayer in our hearts, because this is the heartbeat of the deen, the Salah. Inna salata kanat ala al-mu'minina kitaban mawquta. Fixed and stated times. So thank you for your advice, inshallah, brother. Yes, sir.
What are our core priorities in very difficult times as humans, as individual level? I'd like to have an advice. What can we do? So confused. We're so confused, but we still think that any work that has been done has to be done in a group, not at individual level. So everyone is washing his hands. So what do you think our priorities are in these times?
Sister, if I understood what you said, first of all, the blessing of all actions in Islam is with the Jama'ah. We don't say that the individual does not act on their own self. Many things the individual can do. To elevate themselves, they can do nothing. Many things you can do on your own. But the blessing is in the Jama'ah, because in the Jama'ah there is shura. Something that you will not think of yourself. When you're in the Jama'ah, someone else will think of. The other thing is, the individual cannot regulate themselves. When there's Jama'ah, there will be an Amir. Someone will govern. Somebody will have accountability. So I say, let all of us individually exercise the nafl. Spend more money in the way of Allah. Spend more time in the way of Allah. Seek more knowledge in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Join committees and do all the things and study and do everything you can do, but the blessing is in the Jama'ah. So seek to do whatever you're doing in the Jama'ah, even if it's only a small one. I think this was the nature of this question about the individual as opposed to the Jama'ah efforts. And of course, again, I go back to the issue. The first thing that we have to try to do, sister, is perform the fara'id in Jama'ah. After that, the sunnah. And although we might think this is called fundamentalism, you know, this is, brother, you're just being oversimplistic. There is no replacement for the yeast in the biscuits. If you understand what I said, huh? You understand what I mean? And the yeast in the bread, there's no replacement for it. You got to have the yeast there, otherwise it's not going to become bread. So the fundamentals have got to be maintained. And after that, then we can put the icing on it, or we can put whatever else we want, and we can get more sophistication. But don't forget the basics.
So, you said to improve our Islamic state, we must improve on ourselves first. And are we allowed to give dawah? Wouldn't that be a set of hypocrisy? We give dawah, yet we don't fix ourselves. But what do we do? Can we give dawah while we are fixing ourselves?
Of course. But the Messenger of Allah made it incumbent upon all of us. بَلِّغُ عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. Teach from me whatever you have, even if it's only a verse. Yes, you have to do that. But make sure you understand what you're giving da'wah upon. You first see the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did, He did what? He revealed what? Knowledge. Bada'a bil ilm. He began with what? Knowledge. So first thing we have to pursue is knowledge, the proper understanding of Islam. Not sophisticated issues, but very simple issues. After that, amilu bih, acting upon that knowledge. Then after that, da'watu ilay, inviting upon that knowledge. And then after that, what? Sabr ala al-adha, being patient upon the adha which is going to come as a result of spreading this da'wah. These are the stages, and these are fundamental stages that the ulama and the fuqaha have given to us. We cannot avoid that, and we cannot circumvent that. This is the advice which I have for you and for myself, inshallah.
So this is regarding last night's lecture. You mentioned there are 5 books. Apocrypha, or maybe you pronounce
Apocrypha,
that.
yes.
Yeah, where Muhammad is actually stated. Are they still in existence?
Yes, sure. You can go to. Matter of fact, I'm sure that a universal library.
Oh, sorry, don't mean to interrupt. Not the actual books, but that actual passage stating that Muhammad will come to pass.
No, that you can find if you go on the website and put in the word Barnabas, and you'll get a listing, the Gospel of Barnabas. Click on that.
Sorry, I know what that verse is exactly.
Okay.
The book of chapter 5, verse 16, the Song of Solomon. I read it in Hebrew. Don't read it in English.
Okay, this is one moment. This is a different reference.
Apocrypha means doubtful.
No, this is a different reference. She's referring to something I said last night, so I'm responding to that, Brother Bilal, inshallah. The Apocrypha, he's right, it means doubtful books because the church fathers, the Catholic Church in particular, it was doubtful to them because it made reference to what they didn't want to make reference to. So they took it out from the books that they wanted to make reference to, but they are legitimate books. If the rest of them are legitimate, certainly the Apocrypha is legitimate. I don't use it as a reference. I'm only saying that it is a Christian reference. So Christians need to look at that reference, okay, because it's there. And it's called the Apocrypha, and one of the books is called the Gospel of Saint Barnabas. And Barnabas was one of the historical disciples of Jesus Christ. He was called Blind Barnabas. He happened to be one of the only people that walked with this person who was called Paul. But he didn't know who Paul was because he was blind. You will find a reference to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in his gospel directly. That's the reference that I was giving.
Sorry, I just have a second question. Are there any countries currently practicing Islamic law? And if so, which countries?
There are several Muslim societies that are implementing different aspects of Sharia. I would not say there's anyone in the world today that we would say is an ideal Islamic state in which we can find the comprehensive expression of Sharia in that society. Because we don't have an ideal world, so we don't have ideal Muslims. And ideal Muslims are the ones that create ideal families, and ideal families create ideal societies, and ideal societies create ideal governments. But certainly this doesn't mean that the Sharia is buried someplace and that it is in the past. It is not. There are many countries, I would say 3 or 4 countries that we could use as a reference where it is a Sharia-based system. One is Saudi Arabia. If you become a Muslim, you can go there and you can make Hajj, or without even going there, you can look to their, you can go to the Saudi embassy. They got to have an embassy here, right? And they'll provide you with some, I think they have some software. They'll show you what the basis of the relationship between their government and Sharia, what effect Sharia has upon their government and the implementation of their laws and their legislation. I said Sharia based. I don't say that they're governed by Sharia completely. Yes. Yes. I'm sorry. You're supposed to be. You're regular. I'm sorry.
First, I had a comment. Then I had a question.
Okay.
My question was relating to going back to original sources and finding out the truth for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in relation to any political or ideological divisions that may occur within the history of Islam. Islam in itself is very clear on what a Muslim is. Now, I know this is probably general knowledge to most of us, but the first thing is the Shahada, Salat, Salam, and Hajj, and of course Jihad. So what is most important to understand, and Zakat, I didn't mention it. What's important to understand is that this is what constitutes a Muslim, and anything else is irrelevant. And this is the original source. This is what the Quran would say. And if this is what makes a Muslim, then, as the Prophet said, a Muslim is not a Muslim until he wishes for his brother or sister what he wishes for himself. So I want to make this clear because some of the comments that were made can be alienating, and if Muslims persist with this state, some Muslims persist with this state of mind, it can be very discouraging to other Muslims.
Okay.
And that's what Allah says. If we're following the command of Allah, this is what's supposed to come first, that our brotherhood and sisterhood is what's most important, and Allah tells us what's a Muslim, not anybody else. The second question was in relation to...
Can I respond to the first comment?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, sister, may Allah reward you. But the Arkan Islam, the 5 Arkan, this comes from a hadith. Bunya al-Islam ala khamsin. You know this hadith. You know what it means, right? Bunya al-Islam ala khamsin. So Islam is built upon 5 pillars. So as Muslims, we live to try to establish these 5 pillars in our lives. But this is not the all of Islam. It's simply because you make the Shahada to try to do that, this doesn't mean that's it. You become a Muslim and that's it. No. This is not the case. No, the sources of Islam is not the 5 pillars.
I'm not saying that.
Okay, then I want to make this clear.
Yeah.
Because in my references that may alienate some people, I'm referring to the Quran and the Sunnah. Knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah and understanding the Aqidah base. Because the Aqidah base is what? It doesn't mean just a matter that you say, I accept the Quran, I accept Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But no, if you reject the Quran, if you reject the verses of the Quran, if you reject the law of the Quran in your life, you don't accept the Quran.
Yeah. I wasn't referring to your comments, by the way. I like how you answered it, so it wasn't about you.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that that this is all it takes to be a Muslim. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that they're the basic tenets of what a Muslim should basically believe, and the actions of the person's life after that, well, that's every person for themselves in terms of what they do.
That's intrinsically not correct, sister, at all. This is something taken from the unbelievers. That this whole issue of as long as we have the 5 pillars of Islam, and that's what makes a Muslim. Just a moment.
Yeah.
As long as we take the 5 pillars of Islam and we are all Muslims, and after that, I mean, it's a person's individual choice what they do, and nobody should have any comment about that. No, there is accountability.
In terms of what?
There is accountability. You are, as a Muslimah, you are accountable to somebody in a Muslim country. The only reason you become an individual and you personify individuality is because you live in a country that has made individuality a religion. In Islam, you have an accountability. It is not just a matter, for instance, let me give you an instance, because it won't take too much time because other people have questions. I'll give you an instance. After the Prophet ﷺ passed away, ﷺ, there was a group of people who said to Abu Bakr, they're going to pay zakat, but they'll pay it to themselves. Didn't they? This is their own individual feeling. The Prophet ﷺ is not here. We'll pay the zakat to ourselves. We'll not give it to you. What did Abu Bakr radiallahu anh decide about those people? Did he leave them for their individual feeling? What they thought about it? Certainly they were Muslims. Abu Bakr told them, Wallahi, the zakat is one of the pillars of the Islam. You will pay it in the same way it was paid during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, or I will wage war on you and I will take it from you. So Abu Bakr was a very mild-mannered person. Usually, Umar was a very militarized, militant person. Umar and others radiallahu anh said to Abu Bakr, Ya Abu Bakr, these are Muslims, how are you going to wage war on them? He said, if they change their shahada, will they be Muslims? No. If they don't pray, will they be Muslims? No. If they don't fast, will they be Muslims? No. If they would say they won't make Hajj, will they be Muslims? No. So if they don't pay the zakah, they are not Muslims. They are murtad. They are apostates. So, sister, this is a very fundamental issue that we have to deal with. That we cannot look at Islam as an individual issue, that once I become a Muslim, I'll take my shahada, then it's my own individual, nobody should put any pressure upon me. La ikraha fi din is something different. You are a Muslim, this doesn't apply to you. There is accountability in the religion. We don't feel this accountability because we live in a country, young Simi, that tells you that every individual is for themselves. That's not true. Now, maybe you didn't mean exactly all of that, but I'll tell you what I can do for you. I'll be here for another 4 days. I'll give you my email. You can stop me at another time and I will discuss this matter a little further, or I will refer you to somebody who has better knowledge than myself, because this is a very dangerous issue. It's a very sensitive issue. And I just want you to take this, just take that advice from me about it, and I'm just saying to you with the best of my ability, and I'm putting the best construction on what you said also, inshallah.
Brother, firstly, I just want to ask you a very simple question. Pardon my ignorance, but can you define dawah for us if you're talking about it?
Dawah.
Yeah, and also can you please just state, in your opinion, what is the best way that ladies, might sound a bit sexist, but how do ladies do dawah, or what's the best?
Dawah means, by definition, it means calling, inviting people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means calling people towards the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Calling people towards the aqidah of Islam. Calling them towards what you are upon. It's an invitation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, call to the way of your Lord. Who is the way of your Lord? What is the sabil of your Lord? The sabil of your Lord is al-Islam. What is Islam? Call to the Quran, call to the Sunnah, call to the aqidah of Islam. Call to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with wisdom and beautiful preaching. Sure, everyone has to do this. This is upon you and upon me. We don't have any clergy in Islam. Some specific people, you understand, whose role is, ecclesiastical role is to do da'wah. No, every individual must do the work of da'wah, but once they receive some knowledge, according to what knowledge you have to share it. You have to give it. Because Islam for you and I is a treasure. Allah gave that to us. We have to share that treasure with other human beings. This is our job. And you as a sister should do it to your ability. And I like to say to you as a sister, you may have a greater responsibility upon you, maybe than some men. Why? Because of the population of women today. In the Western world today, women are 2.5 in the ratio to male and female, that is. But if you take that ratio in another way, if you take the men who want to be women, that adds 3.5. If you add the men who don't want wives at all, then that makes 4.5. If you take the men that's fighting at war, they're not available, that's 5.5. If you take the men that's in jail, that's 6.5. If you take the men that's shooting drugs and drinking alcohol, that's 7.5. So I mean, this is a tremendous ratio when it comes to the issue of dawah. And I'm sharing some social statistics with you that 60% of those that enter Islam, 65% of those that enter Islam in the UK and in the USA in particular, 65% are women. And this has come from one-on-one dawah by women. It's not brothers giving dawah, it's one-on-one dawah by women, just like yourself. So yes, you have the same obligation that I have.
It's so difficult on September 11, like what are the ways to get around it?
Okay, I'll briefly just address that. Sister, you know, let me give you a couple of statistics, and I use statistics sometimes to explain issues. In America, normally on an annual basis, about 42,000 people accept Islam, generally every year. In the UK, about 12 to 15,000 accept Islam every year. What I found, according to verifiable statistics, is that since September the 11th in America, 78,000 people accepted Islam. In the UK, 26,000 people accepted Islam. Myself working within my institution according to my ability, in the last 10 years, I know that our institution has given at least 5,000 shahadas. That's on an average of what, 500 a year, isn't it? Well, since September the 11th, he quoted a figure of 1,476. Actually, it's now 1,523. So since September the 11th, the Islamic Teaching Institute has delivered 1,523. Now, this is not because this is not because we have some extraordinary capabilities. It's because this is one of the concentrations that we use. I say that you and each one of us should take 30 minutes a day and examine yourself, your capability and your resources, your colleagues, your neighbors, your colleagues, your neighbors, and your co-workers. Target them. Spend 30 minutes a day talking to them about Islam. Engage them about Islam. But you have to make the intent to do it. And you'll find, maybe it'll be difficult for the first week, for the first month. But after you do it for about 3 months, that 30 minutes is gonna be easy for you. After a while, you're gonna be able to do it for an hour a day. And I guarantee you, sister, inshallah, if you make the intent to give dawah this way, you will on average, you yourself will on average give 1 shahada every 3 months at least. And think about this here. Suppose the 400,000 Muslims in Sydney, or let's put this, suppose the 150,000 adult Muslims in Sydney, Australia, suppose each one of them gave 1 shahada a year. Not every 3 months, 1 every year. How would that affect this country? So dawah is a very powerful tool, but it's much neglected and misunderstood by the Muslims. That's our problem. And I hope that I answered that first.
Because of the restriction of time, we've only got 2 more questions left. One from sister over here on the right.
Okay, I think maybe we should take another one from the brothers.
From the brothers?
I think we took 5 sisters in a row.
Okay. One from the brothers, inshallah.
Okay.
Today you made it very clear that Islam today is the same as Islam was delivered from the Prophet. But I see, especially at evening, some of the brothers are trying to modernize Islam. What kind of dawah can we give those brothers?
We give them nasiha, akhi. Give them advice. Because the religion is advice. We're not in a position to force anything on people, and we don't want to condemn Muslims, and we don't want to antagonize Muslims. We want to advise them. And the best way for you to advise someone is to develop a relationship with them. Because nobody's going to accept something from you if you have a remote relationship with them. Develop good relationships with your Muslim brother. If you differ even with him, differ with dignity, with respect. And continue to advise each other, because we're not going to rebuild the situation. We're not going to resolve all the problems in a day. And be tolerant. One of the major behavioral assets of the Prophet ﷺ was toleration. The person that has toleration has wisdom. And toleration is a part of patience. That's being able to bear with something that is disagreeable to you, repugnant to you, even an enemy or an insult. See, being able to bear with that without reacting. And this is very, very important at a time right now, because the unbelievers will be pushing buttons to see if they can get a reaction. And if they get the right reaction, it's going to have a very adverse reaction on all of the Muslims. So I say to all of us, be patient and be more than patient. Express and exhibit tolerance, inshallah.
Sister?
And some of
Should we respond to sort of individuals' negative comments or defamation of particular scholars? How should we respond to this?
Tell them to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sister. That's what we tell them. When you hear Muslims slandering scholars, defaming scholars, even speaking ill about them, tell them to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if we disagree with something that a scholar says, we can disagree. Because they're not ma'soom, they're not perfect human beings. But if we eliminate the scholars, if we slander a scholar, who are we going to replace with him? No, just tell that person to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's the best thing that we can do, because it's bad behavior. It's bad behavior. Slandering the scholars is worse than a person slandering their own father or mother. I think we can take one more
question.
That's it, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
What's your message or your word to Muslims living in the West, considering the fact that Muslims living in the West or in any other Islamic country is not really recommended?
What's my advice to Muslims who choose to live in the West as opposed to in the Muslim country? Is that what you meant? Something?
Yeah, that's part of my question. The other question in general, what's your message or your word to Muslims living in Western countries? As in, like, you know, because you're subjected to many pressures,
Yeah.
many interactions.
Well, generally there is 3 reasons, first of all, that legitimize a Muslim to be living in the Western countries. They came here for some knowledge, which they intend to obtain and go back to their countries. Or they came here to be treated for some disease or some medical situation, they or their families, and once they receive that or they have the cure or the situation, they will go back. Or they came here for da'wah, in which case, as long as they are engaged in da'wah, they can stay. So that's just a general fatwa that is already established, very clear. This is some reasons why it gives legitimacy for Muslims. But those Muslims who just simply come to the Western countries, the Kafir countries, to get a better life, to have asylum and safety, and to raise their families up, and to enjoy that culture and under that umbrella, shame on them. They will answer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. But the case is what it is, dealing with the reality of it. We are here, living in these countries, whether we're born here or not. I say that what we should do is, and I think this was the last part of my statement when I talked, I said we should try to integrate the best of what one society has, one civilization has with Islam. Integrate it to the best of your ability. Do so with your behavior. Select from the best. The Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sent some of his companions, if you can remember, to Habash. You see, he sent them there because he said that there was a king there who was known to be just. He was not oppressive. He wasn't sending them there to engage in their culture. He wasn't sending them there to live there indefinitely. He was sending them there temporarily, you know, so that because it was the lesser of the 2 evils. So I just advise us to take from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and to use our behavior to show what Islam is to other people, and at the same token use the treasure of Islam to complement ourselves as opposed to the culture of the country that we're living in.
May I just add this, that most of us, or the majority of the Muslims or Arabs which come to Western countries, they do come for financial reasons, unfortunately. But what can we do in this case? Especially now, people come from Arab countries, they're coming out of political reasons, and it's just deteriorating and just going down the drain. So, what can we do about that? Is there some sort of fatwa or anything that permits us living in our countries because of that and staying somewhere else?
Okay, in this regard, sister, I mean, you probably know better than I do, or the brother here, he can refer you. That you have ulama and fuqaha living right here in the Sydney who can give you a fatwa on this issue. And you may not like what they say because people like to go to scholars like they go to a restaurant. But I say, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ ذِكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. When you don't know something, go to the people of dhikr, the people of the Quran and the Sunnah, and they will be able to tell you. Me, I cannot offer a fatwa, but I might be able to relate something upon one of those fatwas. I just say to you again, those Muslims who find themselves by choice or otherwise living among the non-Muslim people should guard their behavior. That's number 1. They should be upon the da'wah of Islam. Number 2. And they should be committed to reforming themselves and therefore contributing towards the revival of Islam. This is
قل آمنا بالله وما أنزل علينا وما أنزل على إبراهيم وإسماعيل والأسباط وما أوتي موسى وعيسى والنبيون من ربهم لا نفرق بين أحد منهم ونحن له مسلمون.
One Islam Productions, an Islamic film studio established in Australia, is dedicated to producing films for all Muslims. Just some of the films by One Islam Productions: children's programs, Islam for Me, We Remember Allah, Storytime, and more. Educational films, Pray as You Have Seen Me Pray, Words, Ramadan, Renewal of Faith. Documentaries. We at One Islam Productions believe that Islam is precious and deserves to be presented in only the highest quality. Visit us at www.oneislam.net for more information. One Islam Productions, a film production company run by Muslims for Muslims.